The title of the movie is Unfaithful. The movie begins with a happy family consisting of 3 members: Edward, father, wife Connie, and son Charlie, and we know that they are living a quiet and beautiful life. Here, Edward is taking his son to drop him off at school, and Connie wants to go and get birthday supplies for their son Charlie, and we know that on this day it is stormy and the air is high, and after that Edward and Charlie go. She goes on a bus to go shopping, and when she goes shopping, she comes back, and the storm increases, and the air is very strong, and the street is littered with flying leaves, and while she is walking, she suddenly bumps into a person named Paul, and Paul is carrying books in his hand, clearing the books from him and Connie's money items, and here each one is carrying the other's needs, and we see Connie. She injured her leg and Paul apologized to her and told her, if you want to come to the apartment with me so that you can treat the wound, but she refuses at first and asks him to stop a taxi for her, but the taxi does not stop, but he insists on it, and she then decides to go in with him. And from entering, she starts treating the wound and sees that he has books, and asks him to call. Her son is late, and whoever she wants to go gives her a book as a gift, and she takes it and goes. And when her husband returns, she says to God, "I am someone today who helped me." Edward hugs him and her, and tells her he is handsome, and she smiles, and he says to her, "We give God a gift," and Edward leaves. The next day she becomes curious. She reads the book he gave her, and whoever opens it, he has a piece of paper, and this paper has her phone number written on it. Then she goes out to a public place and calls him, but she is hesitant. Whoever answers her thanks him and asks her to go to him, and they drink coffee together. Whoever goes to him asks her to close her eyes and read the book to her, and she feels what she is comfortable with, but here she is not comfortable and decides. She goes and then arrives at Edward's place of work and gives him a t-shirt as a gift, and he is happy about it and asks him about her work at the auction, and she tells him that as usual, a person named Bob Gaylord gets it, and here we see that Edward loves her, but his work is far from her, and he calls and she decides to go, and on the second day Edward sees Bob, the father of the auction, and asks about the auction, but he tells him, "I don't see your wife's merits," and he's been absent for a while, and here Edward is surprised and feels that there is something wrong, and at night he sees his wife's rolls busy and thinking about nothing, and he feels that her mind is preoccupied with the person helping her, who is Paul, and the second day they go to him and Paul plays music and they dance, and here the story of betrayal began. And when she returned on the train, she felt remorseful. She felt that she had made a mistake, and we discovered that she had cheated on her husband and entered into an affair with Paul, and she started crying and regretting it. When she entered, he married her at night. She saw him working with papers. He asked her, "Do you love me?" She was surprised and said to him, "Of course, I love you." When she went out, she took a glass gift that she liked. He brought it to her earlier. The second day we see Edward. He is all about his son and playing, and the fact that she is missing this feeling, the feeling of care from roles, and she sees herself coming closer to Paul. And the second day they go to urine, and Paul enters into a relationship with her, and she feels comfortable, and she clings to him more, and he becomes on her mind, and she spends days with him in this state. And one time they are sitting together, making out with her and Paul, and by coincidence it happened. Edward's friend at work sees her sitting in the cafe, looking like a stranger, and he is surprised to see her with this look. Then he comes out and goes, and then she starts to move away from her husband, and Edward is in the same situation. He starts wondering and being surprised, and asks what is the reason. He saw that her behavior changed and she bought new clothes, and every now and then she dressed up and went out with Paul. And one time he asked her for a date, but she refused and told him to go to a beauty center, but he was here. He started to act suspicious and called the beauty center, but he did not find a reservation in his wife's name. Here I am sure that something is coming that will happen behind his back, and he is curious to know it. When she goes to urinate, she accidentally sees 2 of her colleagues, and she is forced to sit with them in the cafe, and while they are talking, urine enters. He attracts her attention and attracts the attention of her colleagues, who are impressed by his handsomeness. Here, Connie asks for permission from them and goes to him. When she comes back, they notice that I am not normal. Here, her colleague is impressed by me and says, if he talks to me, I will never refuse him. But her friend Tracy tells her to be careful of this behavior because you are married, and your life will become a tragedy, and she will be with you. A disastrous ending. And we know here you see Mara in such a situation and she advises her colleague, and here the one who hears Connie's words gets up, afraid that such a situation will not happen to her. And whoever goes to Connie, she tells him to put an end to our relationship before it is revealed. But he tempts her with his words and she does not know how to reject him. And behind her we see that there has become a problem between Rolls and Uhud workers and exposes him and takes bribes, but his friend tells him that I have a family and I need money to spend on them. And Edward tells him that you are supposed to be loyal to your second family, which is your work here. His friend gets upset and leaves, and Edward decides to fire him, but before he goes, he tells him, before you talk about the family, go and see where your wife is. And here he is shocked. Edward did not know how to speak because he needed someone to tell him. And finally he became suspicious of his situation and saw her. Edward goes and asks someone to spy on his wife in order to reveal her infidelity. The next day, Edward goes to work and has a meeting. He notices him worried and busy and thinks about how this behavior will come from his wife. And at the same time we see that Connie is Tunisian and oboe and she spent good times with him. And in the meantime we see that the person took pictures of her and her walking, and Paul, and she forgot to take her son to school, and she felt herself negligent and returned to her son and neglected her life and her family. And at night we see her sitting crying and holding herself accountable. She came to settle it, and her son comes and asks her why she is crying, and she tells him that there is nothing, and it is as usual. On his intention, the child tells her that daddy will come early on the second day. Edward meets with the person who assigned him to photograph his wife, and here Edward sees the pictures for the first time. And he knew about this thing, but Rad wanted to be more sure. He got the last piece of evidence and got Paul's address. Behind her, we see Connie shopping, and when she returns in the car, she coincidentally sees Paul walking, and a girl she doesn't know. And Connie is shocked and gets out of the car and follows until she is sure and enters an office with books in it and sees Paul is inside behind the shelves, and Connie gets upset at the blow. But he takes her to the apartment and tries to explain to her, but she does not believe it, but he insists on her in his own way, and as usual, she sympathizes with him. Then Edward goes to the address and does not open the door. He is shocked to see a young man and asks him to come in, and whoever enters is confused and imagines what his wife is like. She cheats on him and a younger man, and Edward happens to see the glass gift and is surprised and shocked at the same time. He gets tired and gets emotional, and here he loses his temper and hits Paul with his head. In the meantime, Paul falls to the bottom and dies, and he feels that here Edward has committed a mistake and a crime because of his excitement and decides to inform the police, but he backs down. But in the meantime he hears his wife sending a recorded message. Paul and she tells him that we will end our relationship, and after I can bear to betray my husband any longer than this. Edward feels that it is too late, and then he wipes his fingerprints and wraps Paul's body and takes it in the car. And then he rushes to his son's school party and finds his wife there after he cleans himself of the fingerprints and sees Connie sitting and sit. They go and see their son singing on the stage, and here Edward calms down and gets closer to Connie and feels the killing of doubt, and after he has nothing to think about, and when they return home at night, Edward goes and throws the body, Paul's, in the garbage so that no one discovers it, and he returns home until he sleeps. And on the second day, Connie feels that her husband is not normal, and he asks her if we should live without a house, but she tells him that she loves this house and there is nothing wrong with him. If Edward is at work, the police come to his house and ask Connie if she knows any news about Paul and knew that he was missing. The police are looking for him, but she does not give information and tells them that she was just buying books from him, and then someone he happened to see was dead. In the garbage, behind her, the police know the location of the body and know that he was killed. Behind her, we see that the investigators returned to Edward's house and investigated him, but they denied knowing him a second time. And here she found out that he was murdered, and when the investigators go, She cries and is shocked when she sees Edward, who is washing clothes. She coincidentally sees pictures of her and her walking with Paul, and she finds out it's Edward. He knows about him, but he doesn't say it, and she is shocked to know. At night, they are having a party at home, and her colleague takes out the glass gift and tells her, "Where did you get this gift?" And when she sees it, she is shocked because you gave her urine, and she does not know how she returned to this place. She returns to her house again, and here she knows and is certain that Edward is him, who killed Paul and who left him, and she entered to ask Edward, and Adar responded. He got emotional and told her, "I am supposed to kill you, not him, because you neglected your family and left with someone younger than you." Edward tells her that he knew about her cheating on him from the first day she met Paul, and he saw her go sit alone and blame herself for it. What happened because of her, and she did not listen to her colleague's advice. On the second day, we see Edward teaching his son how to play, and she is sitting there and sees the glass gift. When she opens it, she finds inside it a picture of their son who was different, and on the back of the picture it is written that she is the most beautiful wife in her life. At the same time, she seeks out Edward and feels for him and is affected, and then she burns her picture. And Paul, at the same time, she imagines that the first time she saw her, she was riding in a taxi and coming back, as if this had never happened, and she regrets what happened. And Edward comes to her and tells her that I will surrender myself, but she refuses and tells him that we will find a solution, and with participation, music, there is another place, and they live new days, and Edward talks with her, and they plan and wish to come up with new ideas. They live in a house near the beach and forget the past, and then we watch the end of the movie. You liked it? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and we will show you the next movies. Goodbye.